Hey guys, Abageto Neborike here, and I'm just gonna go through a quick video. These are my genome link DNA results, so let's check them out. Here I'm gonna show you where I'm gonna press. This is the page, and I'm gonna show you my DNA results right about now. So let me do this from the start, from the beginning here. Now I'm gonna show you and display for you the actual genome link page. So let's just go through it just quickly. Look, here's the dashboard, personal summary, bonus ancestry, reports, your traits, blah blah blah, and a whole bunch of stuff. DNA matches. Anyways, I hope this is recording my voice. But I'm just gonna go through the DNA. Let me just raise the volume just in case. Okay, so let's go here. And if we go to traits. Oh no, what did I do? I'm sorry, let's wait quickly. Oh no, it's gonna show you. I accidentally showed, but I'm gonna block that. So the genome link results, and I'm gonna explain. What you gotta know first is that I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up knowing that I was light skinned and that we come from a whole bunch of, from backgrounds and ancestry from Europe, especially Southern Europe. For instance, Corsicans. We even have the last names. We know people from Spain that have immigrated to Puerto Rico and thus became my ancestors at the time. I'm gonna speak about a time frame about. I mean, these people that I'm speaking about. That's like 1900s and up. Some are maybe 1700s, 1800s, about that sort of time frame. But the ones that I'm talking about, and a whole bunch of immigrations that came of peoples that came to Puerto Rico, are actually very rather recent. So I'm Puerto Rican. I know. Look. Before I show you the results, I did a whole bunch of study. I've been like 20 years, almost 20 years, researching and investigating, whether it's genetic information or whether it's linguistic, historical, and all that. It's been a very long investigation where I have learned a lot, and I have been able to not just learn for myself and for my own help, but I have been able to help a lot of people. So as I grew, I would look at myself in the mirrors and in the pictures, and I would say so. And I'm sorry, and I would say, okay, so my mom says she likes Spain. My dad says we come from Taino family, which is indigenous Puerto Rican. Native American is practically the same, but the location is the Caribbean. So we acknowledged that we had like this indigenous family in our background, and then we were like, but we still considered ourselves part of Spain. But in the me as a Boricua, as a Puerto Rican, I was like, okay, so I look at myself in the mirror and I see some features, and I'm like, wait. I know that I come from a whole bunch of ancestries that come from Europe, and I even have some red hairs in my hair, like red hairs. My hair is black, not black. It's dark, but it's not black. I even have red hairs, and a whole bunch of stuff like that, and I'm very hairy, so I know that I come from Europe, and I can see all of those features and those traits. But then again, I will look at myself in the mirror and say, wait a minute, but there's like these native features to my face, to my eyes. What is it exactly? And later on, then I could learn what these things were and how to identify indigenous features in the faces of modern day Puerto Ricans. So I saw indigenous features within my own features and my own phenotype which is the physical appearance. And then I said, well, let me get a DNA test because I must have some Taino DNA, right? I was like, wow, like, there's a lot of factors and there's a lot of things that I can add, but in the end, that's just a part of what's happening and of the things that I can add and of the things that I can say. But I'm gonna explain because I know that I'm just gonna go off the bat of how I feel about my DNA. My DNA is almost half Spanish. I'm almost half not Spanish, half Iberian, half European. So what does that mean? I'm gonna have like a like 30% chunk of my DNA is gonna be of the Iberians, like 20 to 30, and then like 20 to 30 is gonna be North Atlantic. By North Atlantic, it's people from the Bell Beaker culture. Then they later became Germans, and then they later became the Celts. So what I mean by that is that even the Spanish people have Gallic DNA. So this North Atlantic DNA is what Celtic people have, and we're gonna see a whole bunch of another sort of ancestries trickling in, which I'm gonna explain. So remember, I'm 100% puertorriqueño. Soy boricua. 100% puertorriqueño. So look, 13% Iberian. So I'm assuming this is from top to bottom, but I guess not. I think I'm doing this wrong. There we go. That was the breakdown. This is the free ancestry analysis, and as you can see, Northwestern Europe. And what I can say about this is that it's probably referring to a lot of Celtic DNA. Some Ashkenazi. You see this? I hope my finger can be seen. Yeah, look. This 24%, 0.6. It's not that all of it comes from Spain. It's not that all of it comes from, I'm not British, French, German, Irish, sorry. I'm not British, French, German, Irish, nor Scandinavian. The common DNA that these actual people have with Spanish, with the Portuguese, and with the Italian is Northwestern Europe, which is an ancestral group. It's not that it's saying that I'm British, French, German, or blah blah blah. Ñakiri, ñakiri, ñakiti, ñakiti, ñakiti. No. What it's saying is that about 24% of my overall DNA, which is not necessarily only Spanish, comes from Northwestern Europe. Like, there's other ethnicities that can have the DNA originating from Northwestern Europe. If I'm not mistaken, Taino should have some ancient North Eurasian DNA, and Northwestern Europeans also have ancient North Eurasian DNA. They have it. So that's DNA that the indigenous Taino and the Europeans share in common. So who are we to say that some of these percentages are actually probably from some indigenous origin or party or origin? Sorry. So I didn't buy the whole service, the whole shebang. So what you are gonna get is just part of the chromosome. So it's not gonna display the entirety of my DNA. So I'm just gonna try to finish this video even more quickly, but it's important that you know all that background and all that information. But look at that, 24%, 0.6 Northwestern Europe. That's pretty interesting to me. I don't know about you, but that's pretty interesting to me. So I'm gonna hit it to the side. I'm gonna hit it to the right side. Other European, look at how high Look, Italian, Spain, Czech Republic, Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, Greece, Bulgaria, Albania. It doesn't mean that I'm all of that. But other European means Southern European. These type of Europeans have very high DNA in Iberian type of ancestry, and which is Western hunter-gatherer and Neolithic farmer. It's called early European farmers. So what these people are gonna display differently from the DNA that I previously displayed. The first one that I showed, they have probably higher cheekbones but are West Eurasian. Apart from that, they have lighter tones of hair and lighter tones of skin color. Some Eurasian features, like what I said, high cheekbones, and they may have epicanthic eye folds, eyelids. Because if you view some of the features and some of the phenotypes that, for instance, Germans have, they have some Eurasian features because they actually have a Central Asian origin, which is related to Scythia, ancient Scythians, and a complex called I forgot. I cannot. Afontobagora, which is actually Siberian. So, other European, they are shorter. They're probably hairier than the first ones in the list, but they're definitely shorter than the first one in the list. So, anyways, this means that I'm very high with this type of DNA, which correlates to the type of ancestry that Puerto Ricans share, which is highly South European. This doesn't mean that all of that percentage comes from Spain or Portugal, because most likely half of these two, or very high chunks of these two, is from the Portuguese and from the Spanish. One of these two has higher levels of that Celtic DNA, and the other has higher levels of this other European DNA, which is highly impacted by the Neolithic farmers, which have black hair. Sometimes they could have it curlier. They could have lighter tones of hair, but most likely they could have it curlier than the North Atlantic types. But that being said, that's probably half of my DNA. Like, that's very high. That's more. That's more than half of my genome. More. So that means that more than half of my genome has a Eurasian origin. Remember, this doesn't mean that it's all from that part of the world. You don't know. You really don't know if some of these ancestries may come from the continent of Africa. You don't know if some of these ancestries, for instance, the North Atlantic, may share some key DNA with some of some known indigenous populations and their DNA. So let's go on to the next one. East European. It says that I'm 4.1% East European. So I don't think this is fully maybe of the Ashkenazi. I don't think it's fully from them. Like, remember, for instance, this would say this label, but a Spanish could have some of that. An Italian could have some of that, for instance, from Illyrians. But I have maybe a presumption that most of this DNA comes from the Ashkenazi Jew faction. So I'm probably, like, let's just make a little guess just to play around with the, with the guessing. So I'm probably 2, 3, 2, 1, something like that, 3, 4 of this actual Ashkenazi Jew, because some of that, or maybe even half of that, or it could be even less, or it could be divided into a whole bunch of ethnicities that are labeled as ethnicities later on to the future. But these are genetic components that, or genetic elements in and ancient peoples that most modern ethnicities, for instance Spain and Portugal, share. That's what I basically think. As you can see in the picture, that Slavic guy probably has like this reddish tint to his hair, so it really might suggest a Russian Jew or something like that, which these people right here definitely have a very strong Central Asian and high Turkic influence. So you can definitely expect Siberians, Central Asians, and Turks, not Turkey, Turks, within their genome of these type of people, and Uralic, which are which are East Europeans. So there has to be a very important distinction that there's a difference between East and the West when it comes to Europe. East Europeans suddenly become very much more Turkic than Western Eurasian, such as East hunter-gatherers or East Europeans. Ancient North Eurasians are basically very similar to East Europeans. So that's a very good explanation. And for instance, also on top of that, there might exist the possibility that Taino or some indigenous faction that may be harbored within my DNA may harbor some East European DNA. Why? Because even Siberians harbor Iranic DNA in high quantities, which is none other than East European DNA. That's what it means to be Turkic. That's what it means to be Neo-Siberian. That's what Tungustic peoples are. The meaning of some of these labels is that they share about 60% of their DNA with East Eurasian Mongoloids, but about 40% or so, or 45 in some cases, and in some cases there's even different levels. About 40% in this case of their DNA is shared with West Eurasians, which is West and East Europeans. So that's just food for thought, because within these type of genetic analysis, you have to know you have to understand the differences. So let's move on. This result is saying that 0.5% Asian. It says mainland, maritime East Asia, Southeast Asia, Dravidian West Asia, and Near East. So I'm probably guessing this is meaning that that this is indicating East Asian, total East Asian, such as maybe a Filipino or a Japanese or a Chinese would be. Therefore, I would probably link this type of ancestry to the indigenous native Taino faction. This 0.5% Asian, I think it definitely comes from the Taino. And I'm pretty sure that it 100% comes from my indigenous ancestry, with which I haven't shown as of this point in time in the video. I'm still in the number 4, and there's still 4 more. This is not the full version. I still need to acquire or purchase the full version, but when I purchase it, then I'm going to show you even more detailed information But some of the detailed information that these people are probably already gonna provide to us and to me and to you, who is the viewer, I'm still gonna show you whatever they're probably gonna analyze throughout my own analysis. So I 100% confirm that this DNA that is 0.5% Asian most likely comes from the Taino, yeah, but also would come from the Neo-Siberian. So I confirm to you as of this point in video that the Taino have high levels of Neo-Siberian ancestry, which is very recent peoples. It's not the ancient Native American peoples that came and immigrated to Americas in a distant past. These people came much more recently. So let's jump. So it said that I was 0.5% Asian. So I cannot round it out. It's right down to the middle. In math, you cannot probably round out a number if it's in the middle. If it's 0.5, if the fraction is 0.5, then I cannot make this number 30%. So if I would add that 0. Whatever percent to the native peoples of Americas, it would then be 27%. If some of the East European DNA is actually from if some of that DNA is trickled in from Neo-Siberians, if at least 1% of that is trickled in, then I'm at least higher than 27% native peoples of Americas, because that DNA would then be labeled as such, but would be actually ethnically and native to the indigenous peoples. For instance, the Taino in my DNA. So let's see. It says 26.4% native people of Americas. But as of my analysis, I'm confirming to you that it's most likely higher than that. With the addition of the Asian, it's 26.9. Now we are gonna be missing just a bit to reach the 27%. Why do I emphasize on that? Because that's a very high percent of native peoples of Native American DNA that I possess as a Puerto Rican. Because if you heard my story and my background, for our own culture, we just think, oh, we might have like 1%, yeah, because you look a little bit native, yeah. So we must have like maybe, I don't know, maybe like 1%, yeah, like that's what we think. That's literally exactly what we think. I'm not kidding. And then you see that it comes out, I'm higher than 25% in this particular test. It's like you know that with all the insight that I just provided, it is higher than 27% with the Asian. And if some of the other DNA trickles in also from the Taino, then it's definitely higher than 27%. Because if you can see what I mean with that type of differences and the analysis, you know that this comes from the indigenous Taino, but it's divided in this particular test as Asian, as total Asian, knowing that native peoples of Puerto Rico also have the Asian DNA. I don't have Asian ancestry of no Chinese, no nobody in my family is not even close. We just know that we have the Taino in our family, and that's why I'm explaining that this is most likely, most definitely dividing the Asian ancestry that developed because this comes from Neo-Siberia. The Neo-Siberians is what is giving me this 0.5%. If you access another of my DNA tests, which is get match, it it shows you a even different summary of what it means to be native peoples of Americas. Here labeling it as native peoples of Americas, but if you go to the summary and in the different text, which is a little bit more detailed, you will see that it actually says this, and I'm not joking. It says 1% Sino-Tibetan. It says 4% West Siberian. It says like 4% East Siberian. It says like 2 or 3% Central Siberian. Then it says like 1% Central Asian, and then it says Oceania, Papuan, Oceania. Well, all of those DNAs, all those peoples, all those ethnic groups, actually come from the Taino. Form a part of the Taino eventual genome at, like, for instance, the time that the Spanish people found the indigenous people of Puerto Rico. That's what it's composed of. And I'm giving you the true analysis, because if you say, oh, I'm 26% native, no, but this is also part of that native ancestry. So you're most likely higher than whatever this result and this label would say, because this is just a label. So if we go to here, you would automatically, it's showing you with three big with three DNAs, with three peoples, with three percentages, which are my highest ethnicities. I thought, like, I'm just gonna go back to the history aspect of things, that I would look at myself in the mirror and say, so what am I? Am I, one of those Spanish people that got together with the African types, and then they mixed, and whatever ending result ended up in something that looks like a little bit indigenous? Oh no, but the coincidence would be just too much greater for this to be just a physical coincidence. Because if you're gonna look like an indigenous person, then it's because you have indigenous ancestry. And this is one of the most important aspects that I have learned from all of this time, from my research and my investigation, whether it's personal or whether it's with a large group. But there's definitely things that I can now, upon this time, share and say for certain, and confirm some of the facts that are coming from this study. And then, so look at that. So okay, let's just here's the native peoples, right? Northwestern Europe and other European, and we have them right here. Look at the difference, 26.4% plus the Chinese, the Asian. So what I'm trying to say is that, look at that, my highest ancestries are not the African ones. Is the indigenous Taino is very high in my indigenous ancestry. Because if you compare it with these other ethnic groups, it's practically right there hanging on with them. Because there's no wonder that I have so much indigenous traits that are most likely coming from Siberia. And I'm not kidding, I'm not joking. You have to see it with that light of eyes. You have to observe it as it is. So if we were to observe this, look at that. It's just a very high chunk of my DNA, when in the beginning, not just me, any Puerto Rican would think, wow, I have like 1% Taino. No, papa. Sí, Pepe. You have 26 And I mean, you have 26% in the indigenous ancestry, but not even I mean close, but not even totally exact. It could be even more. Let's go back. You know that from my analysis and from the historical facts that native peoples of Americas are an Asian type peoples, right? So you know that by how the DNA is cut every time people admix. With how high this native peoples of Americas is, you can deduce that it basically comes from the Taino. East European. Now remember that almost half of the DNA of ancient Native Americans is composed of what? Eastern hunter gatherers, East Europeans. This is actually giving you an ancient people group, even though it's saying Estonian, Finnish, Russian, and even though I know like maybe half of that of East European could be totally from the Ashkenazi Jew faction or even higher. I know that some of that could, you could presume that some of that could be trickled in to the Taino, even if just a few percentages. You know that by history, you have to understand that ancient North Eurasians were part of the first immigrations of native peoples of Americas. They were of the first, not the first, but particularly one of the first, and they actually have a lot of their DNA, a lot of native peoples share strongly the ancient North Eurasian DNA. They have it very highly expressed. These people are Hana-like people that also entered Europe. And after entering Europe, they also went back and forth, and they went to Siberia. After going to Siberia, they went back to Scythia, which is Scythia, and they reached Europe. They populated Europe. They are the genetic haplotypes of the lineages R1b and R1a. The haplotype Q, the male inherited Y chromosome of the native peoples of Americas, haplotype Q, used to be in the same complex and camp, such as the Maltaburet, Afontobagora, and others alike, such as the Altayan region, Altai. Well, they all used to be in the same place at one point in time. At one point in time, haplogroup Q, aka the natives, Native Americans, and at one point in time, haplogroup, all the branches and clades and subclades of R, mainly used to reside and be located, if not near, then in the same places. Like if not in the same place, then at least, and also near each other, and also taking their own wives and intermarrying. So that's basically one of the reasons why Scandinavians and Uralic peoples may, when they take some of these tests, they actually come out and they appear with native ancestry. It's because that northern part of the world is very connected to these places that are indigenous, like Siberia, and even it's even connected, or it's closer to Americas. So the times when they have a lot of ice, and there's a maritime inquiry where they have to go to somewhere, and for some reason they reach the Americas. So in ancient times, there's most likely 100% the chance that North Atlantics and the native peoples of the Americas actually probably encountered each other. Like, I know that you would think that that's super interesting, because to me that's super interesting, and this is super high. Like, for somebody that thought, he was like, oh, I have, like, some Asian features in my face, I have high cheekbones, then I must have like 5% Taino at least, or what, or 1%, because I actually said that. I commented that as a child, trying to guess how much of that ancestry should or would I have, when in fact is more nearer to 30 than to 1 or 5. And I'm not even joking, because this is the test this is the test that probably gives me the highest indigenous American ancestry of all the tests that I have seen. But it's clear that from all the tests, is that my indigenous ancestry is well above 20%. At the beginning, it used to be lower, but then it got higher. But as I digress. But as the science gets better, then also these results. So at least I can affirm or confirm to you that this result it just makes a lot of sense to me. And especially after all of this study, I had to understand and go through a whole bunch of autosomal DNA companies and what they do and how they go about things. So let's go. So before we go to the next one, let's read what it says. Native people of Americas, native people of North, Central America, sorry, Amazon, Caribbean, Andes, and Patagonia. So they're clustering all of those people to one people. Just so you know, those people have differences, and I can go through those differences, but that's for another video. But remember that I know that information, and that helps understand what really is happening when they show you our result. Let's go to the next one. Oceanian. Look, I'm telling you, this is Native American as well. So, as of the full analysis that I have given to you, I'm like, okay, so it has to be at least higher than 27%. This is showing even less than maybe 1% or something like that. 0.0% Oceanian. Why is it saying that? Okay, I'm gonna tell you why is it saying that. It's saying that because it's identifying some genes, some genes that are associated totally with Oceanian peoples. This is most likely what we're seeing in the picture right there. There is an image. It's most likely identifying S and P that come from, these are taken from the chromosome, and it's identifying S and Ps that are totally coming from this part of the world, from Oceania. This is not from any other culture. I'm telling you, this comes from the Taino culture. They came to Puerto Rico. They reached Polynesian. This is the Polynesians. They came in different migration, in different waves. Well, this is the Polynesian that you have heard for so long. This is them, and they're in my DNA. Why? Okay, why is quickly? Why are they in my DNA? It's because the Taino, even though I'm like 30% indigenous. Even though I'm like 27% indigenous, well, that means that somewhere in my full indigenous ancestry, there might have existed at least 4, 5, 10% of this Oceanian person or people or peoples that visited. and interacted with our indigenous people. It started from the east. They came from all the way from Polynesia. They came all the way from the east. They reached Peru. They reached Los Andes. They went to Los Andes, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela. Their ancestry kept on going, kept on going. They kept moving, and they reached Puerto Rico. They didn't go to the Dominican Republic. I mean, they might have gone, but not officially like they did in Puerto Rico, because in Puerto Rico, the lineage, the haplogroup, the lineage is C. What you have to understand, Native Americans haplogroups is Q. So that's gonna mean that the Native American haplogroup of the Dominican Republic is gonna be entirely Q. And what happened in Puerto Rico? It's C. And where does C come from? Austronesian. I'm telling you, the Polynesians, it's confirmed, even through my DNA, even being so high European, the Taino factions, my Taino family, my Taino factions, still are showing us, even, 20, that 20 whatever percent, whether it's 27 or 20 whatever, it's still showing the Oceanian or the Papuan related ancestry that is true. So let's move on. This is pretty interesting. So by this, you can already see that already reaching that 27% indigenous, because this was over 1,000 years ago when they entered. I know the history and I've done the video, so you can just watch them and you can just check that out. African, North, East, West African, African hunter-gatherer. So this is clustering. Oh my gosh, this company has me so low in African. It's actually clustering the Negroid branches, and it's clustering the Berber Guanche into one cluster, and it's still 6.3. Well, something, this is very interesting. This is very interesting, because one thing that I'm gonna quickly comment about this is that the first time that I did the DNA test a long time ago with another company, it said that I was high in the African ancestry, but then I said, what if there were also Africans in the indigenous Taino ancestry, such as Oceania, like Austronesians have very high level of Papuan ancestry, which is Negroid. So if the possibility is real that a lot of that was cut and placed into the Native American ancestry. So a lot of that Negroid ancestry, it's most likely harbored into the South American branches, which are different than the North American natives. Okay, so let's go. So my take is, wow, I was actually very low on African ancestry, and I was true. Like, the Taino probably harbor a lot of that Negroid ancestry, and this is crazy. This changes history. This is very interesting stuff, guys. So let's go to the next one. And it's going to show you the next week. So I'm an other. I didn't know I was from the others. Anyways, I'm just joking. This is too much of a long video, but I'm gonna try to cut a bit. Here in my recording, it reached 47 minutes, and I'm gonna try to cut that to maybe, I don't know, maybe half of that if I can, but I don't think it's possible, because there's a lot of cool stuff that I have added into this video, and I've spoken for a long time. So I hope you liked my DNA results, particularly from the Genome Link Autosomal, which is nuclear DNA company for DNA test results of ethnicity, or whatever you wanna label. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Abaketore Borike, and I'll see you on the next video.